This will be a handy tool to utilize today. I also want to say hi to our live streamers, those who might be tuning in through social media. Hello. Hopefully we're getting those links out so people will actually be watching. So yeah, I think we'll get started in about 5 minutes.
Can't.
And
It doesn't let you.
yes, thank you.
Yes. But it's better to have it up for the 5 minutes.
This is why it's better than on YouTube and Facebook, because everybody would just be like, bye.
Marianne, is there a link that is shareable?
We should share it after we start for reals instead of till 5
Yeah.
Marianne, is that something that I should have asked for before and now we should?
I think you can share it still. Like, you'll just have to go to the YouTube channel to get the...
Oh, it's on PTU's YouTube channel?
Yeah,
Fabulous, thank you.
but you want to share it from the PTU page, you're saying?
We should,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you going to do Twitter or Facebook? Okay, I'll do Facebook. What are we going to see? Let's
I think it's keep it simple.
Everybody in chat has good expressions.
The more I talk about this, like the more
It's Cam.
I think Anthony would probably have that contact.
Anthony, have you checked with Cam, Kimberly Trevor?
I'm not sure if she's going to be able to make it today.
I messaged her 2 days ago and said, looking forward to seeing you on Saturday, and didn't hear back.
Whoa.
You know what you're doing. Clearly.
It's a trick to look at the feed and the feed.
Hey,
Yes.
do you guys want to bring these two signs over a little bit? That way, we're close enough to get the audio, but we can see, like, yeah, that. Cool.
Yes, just nailed it. Allie is on the thing. This is the world I want to live in. Just like deposit ideas, and then people will be like, I'll do that thing. What about Scott Osby? Has anybody gotten in touch with them?
They never even sent in a candidate statement.
Oh, I thought they had.
They sent an email saying they intended to, like a month ago, and then there was never any follow-through.
Okay, I thought they were. Just kidding.
When should I share it? Now? Okay.
So 5 minutes have elapsed. Is this too loud?
No.
A little loud? No, it's fine.
Good.
Can you guys hear all the way back there?
They can, yes. So good morning. It's 11. Peanut Gallery is on this morning. It's 11:20 on a Saturday, so thank you for being here. My name is Ethan. My pronouns are they and them. I wanted to just open the assembly with an acknowledgement that we're on Indigenous land. That's something that we should be aware of as we were talking about housing issues, that this land was first taken from its original inhabitants and has been occupied ever since. We have our agenda as stated. We're going to do some introductions. We're going to have potentially some organizing updates from complexes that Portland Tenants United is organizing and/or unions have already formed. Then we're going to have the event that we all came here for, right? What is it?
Elections!
Thank you. Good. I'm also just going to note that we have a K9 tenant member in attendance, and I appreciate that so very much. After the elections is going to look like, we're going to have 1-minute candidate speeches where we're going to get to hear from the candidates that are running for positions. We're going to have just an open comment period in case there's any discussion, statements of support, other statements, which hopefully we've done our diligence and actually we'll have an open comment period. After that, we'll have a vote. We have that door that doesn't need to shut because it's very warm in here. We have an organizer that's going to be counting the votes. That's not part of. We have an organizer that's going to be counting the votes. After that, we'll have a portion where we'll talk about some visioning and some internal structures. It's going to be facilitated by Margot. And after that, we'll have the announcement of the election results. Contrary to what was posted digitally, the goal is to have this assembly be from 11 to 1. If we need to run over that, it's totally fine. Yes, so without further ado, Portland Tenants United is currently engaged in organizing alongside and with tenants at least 2 complexes. The Wimby complex for those tenants. Anybody here from Wimbledon? Yeah. We're also engaged in organizing with tenants at the Yards complex, in addition to some other peripheral organizing. So I guess maybe the way I'll phrase this is there someone who feels comfortable updating folks about organizing going on at the Wimby Tenants Union? And if not, that is okay.
I mean, I think the fact that it's live streamed is maybe not the best time to make those announcements.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like maybe.
I don't feel prepared to represent the group as a whole.
I think that is a very honest statement. So that is just a point of information that organizing is going on. And as for the Yards, is there anyone who feels? Actually, I don't think there is anyone present that would want to update folks about the Yards.
I can give a really brief update.
That's what I was hoping. Anthony, do you want to talk on the mic?
Sure. Thank you, Ethan. So one of the tenant leaders from the Yards who was going to come here today was not able to make it, but I can give a really brief update on what's been going on there. The Yards is a public housing building. It is owned by Home Forward, heavily funded by the city of Portland, which is downtown, and we have been helping tenants there who have been organizing since last year over a whole host of issues. The property management there it's not a building that's directly managed by Home Forward, which is the county housing authority, which provides public housing throughout Multnomah County. It's managed by a private property management company, which is called Income Property Management. And their name tells you everything that you need to know about them. They treat tenants with extreme disrespect. It's extremely difficult for tenants to get them to make basic repairs. There have been security issues and concerns about violence in the building, and they have been completely unresponsive to them or to making sure the tenants are safe. But what they have done very thoroughly is when tenants have complained about repairs or about the way that they're being treated by management is harassing them with constant violations over low-level lease violations. Like, for example, losing the vaccination information for an emotional support animal. One tenant has gotten an eviction notice for losing the vaccination information that they had previously submitted for They're our emotional support animal. Several tenants in the union have gotten eviction notices for non-payment of rent when they had in fact paid rent and had receipts showing that they had paid rent. And there have been a ton of other examples of ridiculous forms of just constant harassment and retaliation like this. And this is the reason, that this is basically this is a property management company that ignores the needs of tenants, and rather than responding to tenant needs when they hear about them, plays mind games with tenants in order to intentionally drive tenants out who have PTSD, have disabilities, have all sorts of issues going on where they cannot deal with this kind of constant harassment from landlords that would really stress anybody out. And so tenants in there have been organizing for several months to try to make it so that their needs are actually heard and met. The tenants union has been meeting regularly over the past several months. There have been several meetings with people who are higher up in Home Forward. And they've generally expressed sympathy when they've talked to the tenants, but they're not actually doing anything. Because the problem with the way that public housing is typically run is that even though it is public housing, and as a socialist, I'm always very supportive of publicly owned housing, just because it's publicly owned does not mean that it's democratically run. It's fundamentally not democratically accountable to the people who live there the way that public housing really should be. And so ultimately what you have is a situation where federal and state and local governments consistently underfund public housing, and then you have this bureaucracy which runs it, which is unaccountable to the people who live there, which is kind of forced to spend most of its time making excuses for why it can't do anything because there's no funds in the budget. And doesn't really have to include tenants in the way that those decisions are made or how priorities are set for the limited funds that are available. So as meetings have continued to be relatively unproductive with Home Forward, tenants organized a rally where they delivered a demand letter to Home Forward's office last year. And that rally set off media coverage. And it also set off that we heard from tenants in a lot of other Home Forward buildings who are having similar issues. And so there's several other buildings where we're in communication with tenants at this point. There's several where tenants are actually canvassing in their buildings, doing surveys similar to some of the tenant surveys that have happened at the yards, where tenants were gathering testimonials from other tenants about the issues in the building and the ways that they've been mistreated by management. And so over the next year, one thing that we're hoping to do through the Direct Tenant Organizing Working Group, which Mary Ann is running for today, is to help these tenants to organize more and make public housing truly democratically accountable. And if you want to learn more about that, you can contact the Tenants Union at the Yards directly via the email tenantsunion@theyards, like fully spelled out, all letters. tenantsunion@theyards@gmail.com. Thank you.
I appreciated that. So public housing that's democratically accountable to the tenants that live there. What a material and substantive paradigm that should exist. Thank you, Anthony, for that update. So now we're going to, it looks like, move on to the elections portion, which I will ask Sammy to come up and facilitate. And thank you, Sammy.
Good morning. There we go. Okay, so we have many people running for many positions, so when it comes time to give your statement, we're going to try to keep it to 1 minute. Try, okay? And if you want to even spend less than 1 minute, that's fine too. Let me just give an overview of what kinds of elected positions that are going to be filled by the end of today. So PTU has we're in our 4th year now. We have been an explicitly horizontal organization without any named leader. The organizing committee as a body has acted as a leadership board, essentially, and so today we're going to move towards a slightly different structure with 2 co-chairs. So they will essentially be the public faces of the organizing committee and be responsible for convening the meetings and for interacting with the public and media, among many other duties. But let me keep this short. The other named positions are secretary and a treasurer, and these are well known enough that I won't say anything else right now. And then some of our most active and important working groups are going to have an official chair starting today. The Direct Tenant Organizing Working Group, DTO. Also the Outreach, Advocacy, and Coalition Building Working Group. The Member Engagement Working Group, and the Communications Working Group. And beyond that, so that what I've just described are 8 positions on the organizing committee. Beyond that, we're gonna have up to 12 at-large seats that could be filled by people who don't have a specific named role but are actively involved in the organizing committee. So, I wanna say one thing. So some of these positions are not filled today. I don't want people to feel like it's urgent that someone has to be written in or someone has to jump in. The way we're going to move forward is, and this will, maybe some of this will come out organically from the visioning of internal structures conversation, but we're going to convene meetings with some of these working groups, and from those processes maybe identify someone who can run them. So it's not essential that all these working group chair positions be filled. We've been doing just fine for several years without having these officially filled by an election. Okay, so I think that's how it's gonna happen. Some people have already voted online, and for those of you who are present here today, you're gonna get to vote with a ballot, right? Where's Anthony? Do we have a ballot? Or are we gonna? Ethan's getting them. Okay, we're gonna have some official paper ballots. Hey, okay. So, we're gonna have for each of the positions, and then alphabetically the people running for at-large positions. We're gonna have you come up here, and you can give a 1-minute little speech. You can tell us why we should elect you and why you're so excited about tenant rights. Yeah. Okay, so are we ready? Without further ado, I think we should, at the top of the list is the position of co-chair, and so I'm going to call up Anthony Bencivengo, one of the candidates. Yeah.
Thank you for that introduction, Sammy. Let's see, so we have 1 minute each, right? Yeah. Okay. My name is Anthony. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm running for the position of PTU co-chair today. Quick bit of background on me. I've been on the PTU organizing committee since 2017, and my main role in that time has primarily been as bottom liner of our direct tenant organizing working group. And the direct tenant organizing working group has, in that time, played a really important role in some of the most important victories that our union has won. From turning out renter testimony to make reload permanent and close the single unit loophole, to evicting the slumlord Senator Rod Monroe, to supporting tenants unions like the Milepost 5 Tenants Association and the Holgate Manor Tenants Union, the Wimby Tenants Union, and the Tenants Union at the Yards, as they fought for security, safety, and dignity in their buildings, and won some pretty amazing achievements. And all of that was won by a whole team of really dedicated volunteers who were, in addition to jobs, in addition to family and life responsibilities, in addition to personal issues, dedicating their time towards making sure this union can succeed. And the reason why I want to run for co-chair now is because we have this really exciting group of people, some of whom are very experienced with PTU work, some of whom are really getting engaged in like the day-to-day work of PTU for the first time, who are going to be joining the organizing committee as a result of this election. And I view my role as a co-chair as a responsibility, to learn from the people who are joining the organizing committee, to mentor the people who are joining the organizing committee, and make sure that they are prepared to be able to make their mark on this union, and make this union, something that really reflects the democratic, member-driven vision that we aspire to be. So I hope you will vote for me as well as my comrade Margot Black for this position so we can keep this union radical and moving forward. Thank you.
Next up, we have Margot Black.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me back there? Yes. My name is Margot Black. I am one of the founders of PTU, which started in this, I guess really officially kicked off in the summer of 2015, yeah. So almost 4 years, crazy that. I stepped off the OC early last year and have been sort of trying to figure out how to still really be part of this tenant movement in that role, and have decided to come back onto the OC and run for co-chair because I am just still really fanatic when it comes to tenants' rights and housing security and housing dignity. And after one of PTU's first and very early big victories in campaigns involving a 73-year-old who is being no cause evicted from his apartment of 33 years after demanding that his apartment of 33 years be maintained and repairs get made. And we were able to stop that eviction literally like right before the sheriff was coming. And somebody said, gosh, nobody gets things done like pissed off moms. And that's what I am, and that's what brought me into this this movement in general, because I, as a pissed off mom, have experienced housing insecurity and feel like it's so important once you start kind of thinking about why things are the way they are in terms of the landlord-tenant paradigm and home ownership and whatnot. It's all real messed up. And it just shouldn't be that way, and it's not normal, and we're not alone. So as co-chair, if you elect me to be the co-chair of the union, I really want to, I feel like PTU's had a really great year doing organizing buildings, but a little bit more quiet in terms of getting out to the streets and trolling landlords and fighting the landlord lobby and speaking truth to power. I want to get us back to doing that. I, on a policy level, really want to support expanding RELO to Metro. We know that Senate Bill 608 is about to pass. That will do statewide anti-price gouging. They're calling it rent stabilization, but who are we kidding? Does 10.4% stabilize anyone's rent? No. In Portland, we have a decent stopgap for all the loopholes in the bill with our relocation ordinance. We want to push that out to Metro, but we can't do that until we, really build power. I think Senate Bill 608 is a result of us not showing legislators our power this year, and we need to build power and demand that our landlords collectively bargain with us and demand that we get to stay in our homes and live there with dignity. And I think that power will lead to other changes down the road. Thank you.
All right, next up we're going to hear from Sammy Black, who is running for PTU secretary.
Right.
Thank you, Sheena. So the secretary, in my imagination of what the role is, to grease the gears to make the internal organizing of this organization work more smoothly. So I have been involved in PTU since we founded it in 2015, and I've sort of been dabbling in pretty much every role and every working group and all the things, trying to find what is the thing where I can really devote my attention and energy most effectively. And I keep coming back to this, man, I wish we had better protocols. Like where should we put things? Who should be involved in which conversations? All of these questions about I made this list recently of the particular ways that I've had conversations that directly involve PTU organizing just in the last month. A voice phone call, an SMS text, a signal text, Facebook messages over and over again, Twitter direct messages, Instagram direct messages, emails, Basecamp posts, that's our internal organizing platform. And inside of Basecamp, in a myriad different places. I even had an owl come and visit me with a message. Anyway, so this is, crazy making, okay, for someone like me and so for some of you too. And so one of my main, intentions as the secretary is to streamline this and to create some protocols about where we put, we record minutes at working groups. Where do we put those? Who gets some sort of notification that these have been posted? Where do people go to look for action items that they should be working on, etc. Okay, so the last thing I want to say is that there's this ongoing sort of dialectical struggle about conversations being, on the one hand, too siloed and just happening among very few select people, and on the other hand, being opened too broadly and confidentiality of sort of sensitive information being breached. And I think that that's a really serious conversation that has to be ongoing, and I really want to make sure that we have a more clear understanding of, and part of that will be not having conversations on 25 different platforms. That's the word, thank you. Concretely, I'm going to be running some Basecamp trainings because as long as we are using Basecamp, this should be the hub of our organizing platform. Okay, I hope you vote for me. Thank you. Oh, right. Different hat. Okay, I'm the MC. So the next role is we are going to be electing a treasurer, and I'm going to call Ethan up.
Hi, this feels familiar. My name is Ethan Harrison. I am on the ballot to be the treasurer of Portland Tenants United. As in my candidate statement, you can see that I have been the responsible person for PTU finances for some short, mid-range amount of time. And while it is not my passion, it is something that I have taken to. I'm also another person who put their consideration in for this role is Chris Lowe. So that was my background. Chris Lowe is someone who I very much think, based on the candidate statement in the packet, would be fantastic for this role. And so this part of my speech is an endorsement of Chris Lowe to run in that capacity. For transparency, Chris and I have been in communication, and unfortunately Chris is bereaving the loss of a good friend. He's actually at their funeral today, so that's why he's not able to be here. But we have exchanged communication, and whether it be Chris in the position or myself, we fully intend on working together, and I really think that Chris would be good at the role of treasurer. Just another point of information is that I, in the past weeks, have been working one-on-one with tenants in a capacity to advocate for them in their rental housing, and that lends itself towards really engaging members, and that's something that I'm also passionate about. So whether it be myself or Chris, votes will happen. That's a statement of fact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan, Chris. So next, we're going to move into the portion where we're going to hear statements for people running.
Barrett is able to read the Chris slide.
Yeah, Chris just sent a short email. Yeah.
Oh,
As I said in my candidate statement, I have some experience with other organizations that's relevant to being treasurer. On the other hand, I don't have the depth of experience with PTU itself that Ethan does. They have shown true passion and commitment. I won't be unhappy if Ethan wins, and we'll work with them in any way they think useful. In any case, I know we will continue to work well together for PTU to build tenant power.
Just tell us.
all right. That was a statement from Chris Lowe. Okay, so now the chairs of the working groups. So the first one is the direct tenant organizing working group. I'm going to call it Marianne H., who's running for co-chair, for chair rather.
Hello, I'm Marianne Harper. I'm running for DTO co-chair or chair. Okay, is that good? Yeah. All right, Marianne Harper, running DTO chair. One thing that I'm really interested in working on is with individual tenant unions, who are all like organized in a given local area under their own leadership. So that's really what I want to be focusing on with the working group, and I'm really excited to get to it. So yeah.
All right. Okay, so next we have the Outreach Advocacy Coalition Building Working Group. I'm not looking at my ballot. Who am I forgetting? Tabby. Oh, Tabby, sorry. Yeah, come on up, Tabby. Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Tabby. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm running for the PTU chair of Outreach Advocacy and Coalition Building Working Group. So I believe I've got a lot of room to grow and to learn, but I do have some skills that I believe could benefit my community directly. Mostly, I built those skills in the last 5 or 6 months, having formed Wimby Tenant Union with a group of women. And yeah, woo-woo! And I believe I can also make a good fit for this position because I'm ready to fiercely advocate for marginalized and discriminated against communities. And I have a basic understanding of landlord-tenant law and have much more room to grow. And as I grow that information, I'll be more than happy to arm myself with it to advocate for the community even further. Having said that, I believe that it's important to curb biases and align myself with all the decisions that PTU makes as a group, and I'm prepared to stand beside PTU and follow them us wherever we end up going. And to end my speech today, I will say that equity to me means accountability, it means transparency, and the pursuit of actual justice, which means banding together and fighting the good fight for as long as it takes. Because an injury to one is an injury to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabby. I think it's really exciting that tenant unions organizing initially outside of PTU have helped to build this organization even larger. So the member engagement working group at this time doesn't have a candidate, although we would like to.
I would like to run.
Okay, would you like to come up and speak? This is Leah.
Right.
Hi, my name is Leah, and I am a transgender woman. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I've been an active organizer in PTU for a little over 1.5 years now, and I am on the ballot for an at-large candidate, but I have decided that I think I can step up to the chair of the member engagement working group. I helped write the election packet today with Anthony, and I'm really excited about all the candidates here. So thank you for giving me this opportunity and being so welcoming and kind to me over this time. One thing that I'd just like to say is I have been involved in the outreach canvassing. I've been the leader of that for mostly last spring and summer. I led dozens of canvases around MAC stations, and I'd like to continue doing that. I'd like to continue doing more outreach, even going to door-to-door canvassing and cold knocks. I have 40 years experience in doing that. I've been involved in politics for 43 years, and I have been involved in so many other things, including transgender justice, LGBT justice, marriage equality, and myriad other major candidates, presidents, senators, and Congress people. I'm really excited to be part of PTU, and I would really like to have your vote for member engagement working group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leah. So Leah's not on the ballot, so that has to be a write-in. And next we have the communications working group, and we also don't have an official candidate on the ballot, but I understand
Oh, that was quick. Would you guys have like mental telepathy?
that Marianne Funk has stepped up, and I'm going to invite her up to the microphone. So, communications.
I'm like Tabby. I got to bring it down here.
Oh, yeah.
I did not come today to prepare to talk, but I'm really excited that I have this opportunity. I've been a volunteer with PTU really for the last couple of years. Times where I've had a lot of time to devote, sometimes where I've had to step back because of school. I'm now in the last year of my graduate program, and my focus really for the entire part of my adult life has been on doing videos and photos for people who are facing housing injustice and people who are houseless. And I'd really like to bring that to the comms chair and really kind of start to push how we are telling stories, because we have to put a face and a voice to those statistics. And for the last 3 months, I've been working as, my mind just went blank. Anyway, I have been working with Open Housing 2.0 through my university and running a big part of that. So I really feel like that experience has made it more possible for me to do what I want to do with PTU. And I really value what you guys have been doing out there over the last few years, and exciting to see where things are going. So this is my official, I'm ready to go.
No battery.
Okay, and PTU does, or historically has had other working groups, and some of those may be rebooted with this. It feels like our ranks are swelling here, and so we look forward to having other chairs in a future iteration of this election. So the remainder of the statements here are coming from people who are going to join the organizing committee as at-large members. This is, in every way, you have the same powers in terms of making decisions, sitting at the table, engaging in the discussions that happen that guide the organizing committee. So without further ado, let's see, I was gonna do this alphabetically, but Dom Belcastro is celebrating his birthday in California. So let me get someone to read his statement. He has a short statement.
Merritt's our designated product statement leader today.
Okay.
Okay. So, speaking for Don Belcastro, uses he, him pronouns. He's seeking an at-large position for the PTU Organizing Committee to further commit myself to the tenant movement in Portland. I am a renter in Southeast Portland, student at Portland State University, and legal worker in labor union law. As a member and organizer with PTU for the past year, I have been a part of the fight for relocation assistance, the formation of 2 tenants unions in the Wimbledon and Hillgate Manor, and the early stages of the work ensuring universal eviction representation for all tenants.
Yeah.
I look forward to organizing with the members of Portland Tenants United in 2019 onward.
All right, thank you, Dom. So next up, Seamus Cook.
Hello. What to say? So I joined PTU after I was exiting infancy and put a lot of time in different roles. And I did so because I felt there was a lot of potential in that organization. And I think few of us to this day realize how much impact that PTU has had on the city and the lives of many people in the city. I think that same potential exists today. Judging from the people running, I think definitely it exists if we harness the power. The past year, I've helped a little bit here and there with some things, helped the Wimby union a little bit, and watching Tabby and her fellow tenants, I very quickly become like great organizers. That to me is like the best thing ever. And so that feeling, without that feeling, I don't think you can really function in capitalism well. Like we live in a class society that's excruciating, and so seeing people like rise up and fight back is, I have to be a part of that. And so, vote for me.
So next, I'm calling Lauren Everett up to the microphone. This is for at-large seat.
Hey everyone, I'm Lauren. So gonna do that. I'm from Los Angeles originally, and I've been in Portland for 5 years. I got involved with CAT 4 years ago. So we've all seen some good things happen with tenants' rights. But I started getting involved with PTU kind of recently because I'm tired of telling people on the hotline that they're just shit out of luck when they get evicted. So I'm also in the Urban Studies PhD program at PSU, and my dissertation will be about rent control and tenants' rights. Yes! So this is also a learning experience for me in terms of kind of getting even deeper into organizing and I love CAT, but a different type of organization from CAT that focuses more on systemic change. So the things that I'm most interested in working on with PTU are I'd really like to start facilitating a dialogue with other West Coast tenants groups, because I think that knowledge sharing is super important, and I think that, for example, LA is working on a anti-tenant harassment ordinance that's currently, I think, under review by the City Council subcommittee. So I'd like to look at doing something like that here, and kind of looking at how we can kind of close some of these gaps on 608, which I know other people have been talking about. And then also working on communication stuff. I also have a film degree and a lot of years of experience as a photographer, so I'd love to help with that stuff as well. And I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, vote for me, thanks.
Thank you. So next up, Jake Hensroth for at-large seat.
Hello, my name is Jake Hensroth. So I've been a PTU member since around 2016 in various different capacities. One of the kind of main things I worked on initially was when HB 2004 was going through, I did a lot of our UPO research on who was basically raising money from which landlords and things like that, just digging through Orstar and looking for that info. In the last year or so, something I think is relevant to this, I recently became employed as a social worker helping homeless people navigate housing resources, and that is kind of one of the main reasons I'm running, is things that I've learned from that. Specifically, the kind of last thread for me was seeing that subsidized housing exception in SB 608 that just infuriated me to a level that is impossible to fully articulate, because I see every day how landlords exploit that. I get landlords calling our office all the time. How can we get them access to some kind of voucher so that they can pay their rent, where you're on the other end of the phone? Well, don't raise their rent. There's an easy answer to that. As far as things I'd like to do in PTU, a lot of which comes from that experience working as a social worker, I know we've been doing a lot of work kind of expanding our tentacles into East County, and I really want to assist with that, because I found with doing social work, going where people are at is really, really, really important. Especially, I know I want to start going to the East County DSA meetings. I actually did get to go to a Symbiosis PDX meeting where they were talking about their East County Tenants Assembly, which is awesome. Another thing that I've noticed just coming from that position is seeing that as we know, there's been a massive kind of explosion around the Me Too movement and other things like that with domestic violence. And one thing that I've seen as a social worker is that is one of the biggest drivers of housing insecurity, is people that are fleeing DV cannot afford to get into new places because of how high rent is. I had the privilege of sitting on, if some people know, the Maine's Women's March kind of disappeared this year, and a bunch of socialist groups jumped in and worked on that and had something instead. I was on the organizing committee for that. And so basically, I think that puts me in something of a good position to help us kind of draw ties with the movements working on those issues and kind of bring housing into that as much as possible. In the last year, I also, in a different capacity as a member of Socialist Alternative, got to participate in the Tax Amazon Fund Affordable Housing campaign in Seattle, which was awesome. Basically learned a lot of things about how being really militant is really important and something that I've always loved about PTU is how important it is to name our enemies. Look at what happened to Rod Monroe. That is like the biggest organizing tool you can possibly have. So this is why I'm running for this position. I'm very honored to stand up in front of PTU because it's such an awesome organization and just say that housing is a human right.
I'm going to echo that. Housing is a human right, is one of our basic principles in the Points of Unity. So, next up, let's see. Alan Hines could not be here today. His statement, if I recall, is quite long. We'll see. Okay, yeah.
Speaking for Alan, he, him pronouns. People with disabilities are systematically excluded from suitable housing because developers fail to create accessible units to meet demand, because landlords and property managers refuse to rent units at rates that are affordable to people with extremely low income. And also, no government agency ensures that accessible units are actually being built. I began the Real Choice Initiative in 2016 following research on the effects of the housing crisis on the disabled community. I found that many of us lack choice of where we live, oftentimes being placed in institutional settings, such as group homes, or remaining in family homes, though wanting something different. We struggle to find units that meet our needs. Some have invested thousands of dollars to build accommodations into units. Some crawl through too narrow doorways, or are forced to leave mobility devices outside to climb a step into units and move around inside with workarounds that approximate accessibility. These issues also impact our ability to visit friends, develop relationships, and take part in holiday gatherings. The issues are tenants' rights issues. While people who live in group homes pay $550 a month in rent, they face persistent rights violations, including discrimination based on sexual orientation, restricted access to common areas, substandard housing, and harassment. The lack of affordable and accessible housing is the primary barrier to people who want to leave abusive group settings. People with disabilities who live in the community often face a choice when the rent goes up or the landlord is violating the lease agreement. Do we settle and do whatever we can to make the situation work for us? Or do we face the immense difficulties of finding something different? I would like to join PTU's organizing committee because institutions are a real threat to human rights and self-determination of people with disabilities, and the housing crisis is intensifying the threat. I feel that PTU's organizing for tenants' rights is critical to making Portland a more livable city for people with disabilities and those who are temporarily able-bodied. I am eager to help lead conversations about equity and be part of pushing decision makers and winning tenants' rights.
Okay, thank you for reading the statement from Alan. So next up we have Paige Kreisman.
Hi, my name is Paige Kreisman. My background is as an organizer with the Democratic Socialists of America. I most recently served as co-chair of Heart of the Valley DSA in Corvallis. And currently I am a legislative organizer and advocate with Portland DSA. And tenants' rights have been at the forefront of my work. Right now I've been working on Senate Bill 608 and the rent stabilization, big quotation on that one. As well as earlier when I was in Corvallis, I ran for city council on a campaign platform that centered tenants' rights, calling for strong rent control, for city support of tenants unions such as Corvallis, Tenants United, and housing co-ops. So I'm very excited to be potentially joining this organization. PTU is something that is a name that carries a lot of weight in the state. So I'm super excited to work with y'all. Very, very honored to have the opportunity.
Thank you. So next up, Ali Sayre. if you see some names on your ballot that I'm skipping over, it's because there are some last-minute shuffles. They've run for some of the other positions. So, Allie is next for at-large.
Hello. Hi, I'm Allie. I'm super excited to be running for an at-large position. I'm a tenant here in Southeast Portland, also a union organizer. I work with healthcare workers to help them form unions in their workplace. And, well, you know, one of the most common things that I hear from workers is the fact that their living expenses are, you know, skyrocketing and that their wages are not keeping up, so that they're facing housing insecurity, and that's kind of one of their main drivers of wanting to form a union in their workplace. You know, over my time as a member of PTU and volunteering or helping I guess coming to actions would be a better way of describing it. I've really seen how PTU has shaped the landscape here in Portland and made some, you know, really incredible gains for renters. You know, especially around the relocation ordinance, and also, you know, helping to evict Ron Monroe, obviously, from the Senate. You know, I was proud to have knocked hundreds of doors for Shamia. Yeah, I really just want to help this work continue and really drive this organization forward, because I think PTU is, you know, like someone else said, really not given enough credit for some of the amazing things that have happened in Portland in the last few years. Thank you.
Next, we have Lior Schweitzer, who couldn't be here, but we have someone to read his statement.
Speak for Lior. Use he, him pronouns. Like many others at PTU, I first became involved when I realized my property management company was exploiting me and my housemates. My interest soon grew much broader, though, as I realized the power we can have working united. This includes power to unionize and make demands directly to landlords and property managers, and the power to change the law. For the last 2 years, I have been involved intermittently with PTU, showing up when I can while I was finishing school. Now that I'm done with school, I would like to devote more of my time and energy to the cause. I bring with me a diversity of experience. I've occupied a number of positions in organizations, working as a canvasser, treasurer, director, and secretary, with agitating student organizations and nonprofits. I've worked in organizations with a lot of formal structure, like Kalamazoo Collective Housing, and with loose-knit anarchist groups like Food Not Bombs. My hope is to bring all of these experiences and the diversity of communicating and decision-making structures to the organizing committee, to both integrate into existing structures and provide suggestions for improvement. My vision for Portland Tenants United is to support it in meeting the ambitious goals we have set for ourselves. At the forefront is empowering tenants. I also want to advocate for our process goals, such as being a member-driven organization with democratic input into decisions, and promoting equity and specifically racial justice, making sure that those communities that have been most heavily burdened by oppressive policies in the past and present reap the greatest rewards of our work today.
So the next person also is not here, so you're on the mic again. This is for speaking.
Kimberly might make it. Kimberly's just late due to a family obligation, so let's just let that in and give a statement.
Okay, so we're gonna skip for a moment to Evan Wellington next.
Hi everyone, my name is Evan Wellington. Running for at-large, the at-large OC position, and my pronouns are he, him, his. And I just want to really thank you all being here. This is amazing. I'm just going to talk about practicalities for PTU right now because I think it's most relevant for my nomination. I think that my major role to play with PTU going forward is a matter of providing context. I am one of the longstanding members of the organization, having been on the OC, been an organizing committee member for 2.5 to 3 years, and where I think I used to be more active in policy and campaign terms. For right now, in the medium term, I've been shouldering some administrative things that in certain cases requires OC oversight and decisions. I've been handling some communication and coordination with pro bono legal representation, finance maintenance where it concerns our logging and reporting of accounts, filing status where it concerns lobby reports with the city, annual reports with the State Justice Department, and federal tax status, which is currently in progress. So as registered agent, playing a role as registered agent, that's also where some of the legal stuff, obligations have come in. As far as, so a lot of that stuff because it's ongoing. I would like to make sure that I'm here to make sure that we are maintaining those issues and keeping up with it. As far as campaign or internal policy issues, granting my schedule will allow for it. I would like to focus on making equity a continuing priority in various forms, including reaching out to educational community resources for training and workshops, among many other things. As far as campaigns, I want to focus on gaining and educating a strong member base that can engage for setting PTU's agenda as much as possible, so that the organizing committee can be guided by PTU's member base. That's my ultimate goal. With that said, I will mention, that as much as my time has been taken up with some of my own life circumstances lately, I have managed to organize the Mile+5 Tenants Association, and so just to speak briefly on that, Mile+5 Tenants Association was formed because a new developer came in and bought the apartment complex that I live at. They are called Community Development Partners, and they basically tried to pull a fast one and told tenants that they wouldn't get paid relo, even though they had not officially been granted their affordable housing status that would have allowed that exemption. We won that battle. They are now paying relo, even to tenants that had moved out after not having received relo. So that was a complete reversal. And that's great. Going forward, however, once they get their affordable housing status, we still have that exemption in our relocation ordinance that if you have a 60-year affordable housing status as a developer, you do not have to pay relocation assistance. So, does that sound fair to you for people who, for whom, especially affordable housing, maybe their last gap between themselves and the streets? Do we really need to keep that exemption in there? I don't think so. So that's one thing that's going to be close to my heart, especially because it affects the place that I live at. Thank you so much, and I hope to get your vote. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the statements. If Tam comes in later, we'll interrupt the programming to let her speak as well. Yeah, so the next portion, well, I'm taking over the MC role. I'll call Ethan back to the mic. Thank you.
What I'm enjoying right now are some nominal refreshments, including some sausage balls, breakfast bars, and fruits and water. Please feel free to partake. Also, that food needs to go home with ourselves. Also, I'm not going to choke and die. There's potato salad too. Do we need a 5-minute break? Yeah. Is that, okay, there's been an ask for a 5-minute break. So let's take 5 minutes to care for ourselves. We'll be back here in 5 minutes.
That's why we can't pause those types of things, but they just keep going.
We can't pause?
No.
Okay.
I think it's either like stop.
So we need some sort of interstitial music, or maybe someone to just come here and dance.
Yeah, I don't think we can. I don't think I've ever been able to stop it. Okay.
Yeah, and I realized that. Well, but I was still work with the chair. That's a site. So that's it's oh. I would love to. That's what I would. Yeah. That's what I would love to do. Yes. Okay. Great. I also. Oh, I actually. I'm actually not.
You don't want to.
I don't want. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Was I didn't get any.
I just have to have utensil out. Where the church makes us use God's utensils. So you're thinking about creating like a separate structure or different tenants you kind of come together. Like it will facilitate that, kind of like let it go. That's your rentals and joy.
Yeah, we're gonna say it's and I was standing in the but luckily I scraped out none of those last night.
Was that?
Oh, I was just saying I was kind of
Cinnamon or the fruit? Gina.
For couches.
Cinnamon or fruit?
Cinnamon.
What? Yeah. I'm homosexual.
Oh, good.
Like a lot of people just like walking.
I don't know, I mean, the small items are quote unquote the actual like local common cost. Okay, I just had a friend that goes to the ADU and she like put in, she posted a listing and they said we had pet deposit.
But the letting deposit, letting the deposit would be.
Theoretically, you would deposit in the sense that if there were damages, they would have to deduct from the amount before they charge an additional, which is how pet rental is non-refundable deposit.
Is that favorite?
Because if, like, say my pet costs $12,000, $3,000 pet rental, they would have to deduct that.
All right, we are at the end of that 5-minute break. I appreciate everyone for getting refreshments. It's always unfortunate when it's usually at the housing bureau, but there's like a refreshment table and like no one touches it, like it's contaminated, and it's funny. So, thanks for not treating me like a bloated government organization. That sounded too libertarian. Moving forward, we are going to round out our candidate statements now. And we have one of our at-large candidates who's been able to join us. So if Kimberly is ready, they can come up and give a short statement of their candidacy.
Okay. Never actually ran for a position before, so this will be my first time. I'm not really a speaker person, so not sure what you guys want to know about me. I was born and raised in Portland, so rented all my adult life, which is oh goodness, I guess I moved out, I guess since I was 19, so.
You move a little closer to the mic.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
So I've been renting for a long time. I've been in my place for a long time that I'm at now, 14 years. So, my whole purpose in being here and joining and trying to run for a position is, I definitely see where our, housing is headed. We're already in a crisis, but it seems like, I don't know what comes after a crisis, but I think we're headed there. So it's about time for all of us to get activated. And I was more focused on the social justice and with the child welfare and the education system. And that's at a standstill. It seems like everything's stagnant. And I just can't work with systems that don't actually move or progress and stuff. And so I've realized finally that, like, you've been wasting your time because they're gonna do what they do and they don't really listen to our input. And so I want to direct my energy where we are being listened to, where we do see some movement and stuff, so that my work and my energy is not in vain. You know what I'm saying? And I need the stability for my kids. So there's a lot of people that I know that are going through housing issues. I'm going through housing issues myself. So trying to learn my rights, trying to help other people learn their rights and assert their rights. And so that's kind of what brings me here today, is to learn more and to offer my skills in whatever capacity you guys need them in. I'm more of a research type person. I'm the one that's always up till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning still posting shit. Posting articles, like, did you guys see this? That would be me. So, actually Tarver House on the tenant union page that you guys have. So that's me. My name is Tambra Lee. Sorry, I don't think I actually introduced myself. But Tambra Lee Tarver. My Facebook name is Tarver House. And then I have 6 kids and a dog. Can't forget him. And so I still have 4 that are at home. 3 under 18 and 1 over. So that's pretty much about me. But like I said, I'm more of a research, and I have done testimonies as far as like the education system on how it's impacted me and my family and stuff like that. And so that's kind of my perspective that I come from, is how a lot of policies that are implemented have unintended consequences for those of us that aren't being thought of. We're kind of an afterthought, which is usually the underserved, the people of color, and the people living in poverty. And so even with some of the things that have been passed, I see some of the consequences coming down the road that it's like, oh, that kind of looked good until you read the fine print, and it's like, okay, that either doesn't qualify to me, or, you know what I'm saying, or it's gonna have an adverse effect on me once it passes and stuff. So those are the type of things that I'm interested in bringing more voice, because I'm pretty sure, just the demographics of Portland, period, it's white. And so there's not a lot of us that come out, and especially when our voices aren't heard. Like I said, I know that I disengaged myself from a lot of committees and stuff because I wasn't heard. So, that's, like I said, I want to bring more voice from more diverse people, diverse situations. I'm also dealing with the housing authority and stuff, and I don't see a lot of that being addressed, and I know they have their own rules and stuff, but some of this stuff does still impact us. And so I want to see how is that crossover? That's another thing that I'm interested in. And then, like I said, the research on the unintended consequences and some of the housing initiatives that are being implemented in other states that I've been seeing come across, that I put on the Facebook page. But just to generate some conversation stuff and some more thought about, well, this is what Portland is doing, but let's see what other people are doing too, and seeing if that's something that will work here. So, trying to get everybody to think outside the box. We can't just have the same people generating the same ideas, and I know Portland's a leader, but sometimes we might need to follow somebody else's example too, So, I don't know if there's any questions, or if you guys ask questions, or, like I said, I don't know how this is run, but.
Yeah. We're gonna, I think that's, we're gonna have an open discussion after statements. So.
Okay. All right, well then I'm officially done then.
Awesome.
Thank you.
the statements have been fantastic. So right now we have slated a period of open comment. So I would just ask if anybody feels moved to share something about candidates, or is there any discussion that needs to be had?
It'd be good if you speak loud or come up.
Yes. If we can project, maybe.
I can project?
Yeah.
First, I'm just so excited about everybody running. Like, this makes me feel so excited. And I wanted to say, I wasn't sure if it was totally clear what was going on with Treasurer, that I am writing in Chris Lowe and Ethan, and then writing in Ethan for at-large. I love both of you people. But Chris has a lot of, that's the position that he is sort of most excited about in terms of his own capacity, and has a lot of experience and background. And so I just want to make that personal endorsement that I'm writing in Chris Lowe for treasurer and Ethan for at-large. And Ethan still loves me for saying that out loud, right? Okay.
This is open. I'm going to quote Teresa Rayford, and when she said on the steps of the Capitol or the police station, "Doesn't it feel good to say whatever the fuck you want to?" And when she said that, I was like, "Who is this? Like, this is somebody we need to watch, like in a good way." Any other statements? Just doing this for the live stream. Also, I don't know that we've disclosed that we are live streaming this event, so please take care how you need to. Okay, it seems like there's no more comment except for our canine tenant here. So if you haven't gotten a ballot, is Anthony able to grab? Does anybody need a ballot? Yes, we need some ballots. We need to, please. Anybody need some pens to fill out the ballot? Already done that? Okay, so folks should actually just fill out their ballots. That would be great. And then is there someone who is collecting those? Sammy, so if you could refer them there. That would be super. Sorry, go ahead. Yes. So yes, ballots, so there's two pieces. There are an electronic ballot that went out via email, and if those watching that are members of Portland Tenants United need that, they can email info@pdxtu.org for that. There's another point of information. The bylaw that governs the elections of the organizing committee for Portland Tenants United stipulates that quorum for these elections is 1/5 of membership. We, by head count, will not be reaching that quorum at this meeting, and that's okay, because the second part of the bylaw stipulates that the elections will be, the deadline for the elections will be extended until such time as quorum is met, and I am putting that at, I'm going to put that at 1 week from today. 1 week from today, we will assess if we have not already made quorum. How convoluted is that, and should I attempt to clarify?
We're good.
Okay. We will reach quorum, it just won't be today. We will be checking in on that and updating membership as ballots come in. Yes, question?
Something to add to that is that the reason why that's in there is because obviously voter participation is an issue in many elections. And that's particularly a case when you're a small organization that's trying to mobilize membership and make sure that as many people as possible are engaged so these elections can really be member-driven. Often it's going to take people a while after they get the first email about the elections to remember to actually open their ballot and vote. And so the reason why that quorum rule is in there is specifically in order to force us to do what we're having to do now, which is now we actually have to call and text all of our friends who are in Portland Tenants United, who are tenant members, and tell them, like, remember, fill out the online ballot, vote. All members of Portland Tenants United got an email, which is a link to the online ballot. There's a link changes to the online ballot in the voters packet that we linked to in the event description for this Facebook event for today. And so now that we're extending the deadline, everybody can and should vote with that online ballot so we can make sure that as many members' voices as possible get heard in this election.
Cool. Awesome. Get your ballots to Sammy. Are there any ballots that are still, do we need some more time to fill those out? I will step away from the mic to grab mine. The quorum is approximately between 40 to 60, based on current membership, which stands around the 200-ish mark. Yeah. If you would love to be engaged in how to engage our membership to get their ballots in, we should definitely discuss that. And we will, yes.
Sounds like something that we'll be working with our potential new member engagement chair.
Cool.
To organize exactly that type of member conversation that we're setting up.
Awesome. So I appreciate our attention while we went through that kind of, we had to stand up and move and do things, and we did it greatly. Next up on the agenda, we have a discussion about visioning and internal structures. This section is going to be led by Margot, and it is based on conversations that have been ongoing for the past couple months, and will be a good time to, I think, brainstorm about what we're doing and how we're doing it. Would you like me to do things on the board, or
I can write on the board because I like to write on the board.
gentle? Yeah, in the black.
I think I was invited to do this to vision, or we're visioning the organizational structure, or like goals, or what was the plan, Sammy? What was the plan?
To reanimate some of these working groups and to figure out which of the working groups, where the work is.
It was, yes, it was to openly. It was to openly assess where the work lies in Portland Tenants United and what we saw as the needs. So getting to the point of what working groups would do, but getting there by talking about what we see as the needs for tenants, what we see as the needs for like this union. Is that too nebulous a phrasing? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe slightly
Sure.
chairs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you want to do it. 'Cause I'm not sure.
I can give a stab at it? Sure. Okay. Is that okay? So I will note that we have the time of 11.
It is 12:36.
12:36, 12:34. So we're here till 1. So that's just some parameters. When we had the last organizing committee meeting, we talked about the idea of having breakouts for working groups. We realized that that would not behoove us, given that we have just potentially in the coming days we'll be electing chairs for those working groups, and that might be a bit premature. So a way forward, we thought, was to maybe have more of a broad, open discussion. That was a little loud. That would kind of reflect some of the candidate statements with regard to where those candidates saw the work of Portland Tenants United. There was some talk of needing to better engage members. There was talk of needing to identify systems and structures that were affecting tenants that maybe PTU had not previously understood or identified. So I think that this would be a good time to talk about what we think Portland Tenant Union should be doing, and potentially have a fruitful discussion there. If that seems to be a conversation that maybe we're not best ready to have, we can definitely hear some proposals from the floor on a way forward. So does anyone understand or have things that they would like to bring up for discussion? Sammy?
So,
Yeah.
at our last meeting, I proposed that this be part of our agenda, so I feel like I should elaborate here a little bit. We have 4 named working groups that we are electing chairs to. There are several other
containers where we do work that some of which have become dormant. Essentially, there hasn't been a meeting in many months, and so I wanted to reassess if we think that those things are still important. And so, I mean, as a starting point, we could just name some of the work that we are doing. So I think the heart of the union, and the first one listed in the ballot, is the direct tenant organizing. And I don't think that anybody doubts that that's essential to our work. I was hoping to walk away from today's meeting with perhaps a date on the calendar for working group meetings for some of these, and actually breathe some life back into some of these committees that have the work has been going on, but not in such a purposeful way in some of these. So next, so direct tenant organizing, the Outreach Advocacy Coalition group, I think is very important.
I think that it might be best to convene the new OC and then put those dates on the calendar and then talk about how to do some outreach to populate those groups and what we want to.
So maybe the best thing right now would be to just make sure there are enough new people that for someone like me who was around in the conversations where we created these working groups and have been in attendance a bunch, I forget sometimes that maybe people don't really know what that work is about. So part of the idea of this conversation was to have everyone be on the same page about like where we need to put our energy.
Yeah, so with regard to just a personal experience of direct tenant organizing, that has been a very effectual way to not only engage people at their doors, but also to radicalize and get some one-on-one training for new organizers. A personal experience was going to a complex on the Yellow Line, kind of towards North Portland with Anthony, to do some outreach to tenants there who were having some issues like improper billing of their water and just some other shitty landlord issues. I went to that canvassing and was like, all right, like I've been doing this, like I got it, like that, hubris that we're installed with as people. And I got there and knocked on the first door and realized I didn't know shit. And then after that first door, I talked to Anthony. I was like, hey, like, is there like a script? And Anthony was able to impart their experience and to kind of guide me into, yes, you might know how to engage a person in a friendly conversation, but do you actually know how to talk about them, to talk to them about the material problems that they're experiencing, and thread a through line to activating them to help change and fight that they need to. So that's one of the reasons that I appreciate direct tenant organizing, and why I think it is important, is that you have very conscious strategy both for the people that you're outreaching to and the organizers through canvassing, and I would love to see more regular canvassing of units.
Yeah, Seamus.
It might be useful, it could be useful if people, I like what you said about what should we be doing. So maybe if people want to tell us what we should be doing, and then we could then take whatever issues people think we should be organizing around, and hey, that could fit in this committee, as opposed to an abstract committee that might brain goes numb when I hear about committees and what they could be doing, like abstractly. So what do folks want to actually do, and maybe we can fit that into the committee?
Well, just on the topic of the canvassing, I just heard someone mention that with the umbrella of direct tenant organizing. Then there's also the next canvasses that are more than the umbrella of member engagement. So maybe talking about what's the purpose of your canvas and like, well, who are like, are you reaching out to folks to help them organize at their complex, or are you reaching out to folks maybe to mobilize around an oak, like an issue, a specific policy, or are we just trying to recruit members? There's lots of different like areas where work could look similar, but maybe it's under a different umbrella. So that's just kind of a difference I'm hearing what different people are saying.
Yeah, the point that canvassing is a tactical thing, and it can look very different.
Yeah, because people can't hear on the live stream, I think.
I just wanted to recap what we decided on a couple meetings ago with a previous OC, and then maybe we can cross out what we don't want to do anymore. The idea of creating a training program, like a union training program, because we've been getting a lot of submissions for tenants wanting us, our assistance, and we don't have the capacity for all of this work. So creating a union training program, and then also implementing RELO around the state of Oregon, and creating a how-to RELO program that we can share with unions around the state came up. RELO training.
And for the union training, that's like how teaching tenants to organize their complexes?
Yeah. And then there's the RELO training that came up. There was a general, city of Portland as like a whole block that we wanted to focus on. I don't know what's left for us to do in the state. I think Margot can give a recap on state organizing for the legislative session. If we want to do anything more before it ends. What were the other main projects that we came up with last meeting?
Oh, was it like zines?
Zines came up.
To kind of help provide educational materials, like it kind of
Creating impactful media and informative documents for tenants that can take the form of zines, newsletters, and/or
Videos, I think videos would be good too.
Yeah, so diversifying the way that we're getting our information out.
And to add to your point a little bit, something I've heard a lot from residents at the complex I live at is wanting easy to digest know your rights information that isn't an in-person training, that isn't, the handbook. That's very useful, but hard for the average person to kind of sift through. So something that's a short, maybe like synopsis of here are your rights. Like you don't need to be screwed over by your landlord the way you have been, would be nice material.
So I'm hearing that as a more accessible.
More accessible, yes. Those would be good words to describe that thing.
I'm not sure if
Hey, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It sounds like there's a lot of interest in maybe slightly reorganizing around projects and as opposed to committees. But maybe that's a conversation we need to have once we convene the new organizing committee.
Sheena said to tell y'all to do onboarding programs. I'm also interested in helping train each other, educate each other. None of us are master organizers who know everything, so let's do better at internal education, basic organizing skills, basic tenant right stuff. But I really wanted to say also, we have a Renter Services Commission in Portland because of PTU demanding a tenant office of landlord-tenant affairs, basically. So we could follow through with that demand and make that Renter Services Commission a real tenant office in the city, as exists in other cities. But like put a demand, like this office should do these things. Let's push that, because right now we have Hardesty and Chloe in office, and they would be receptive to that, I think. So.
What I heard was actually making the landlord-tenant office do what we wanted it to.
Yeah, make it a real office,
Make it a real
as opposed to what it is currently.
And I'm sorry. Some background is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but there has been kind of a stilted up semi-infrastructure within the Portland Housing Bureau for this Office of Renter Services. However, right now it is not actually doing what the popular demand was that got it there. Is that accurate?
And Margaret would say more about that, I think.
I can.
Yeah. You don't have to, but.
Oh, okay. Somebody needs to go let Evan know something.
Oh, great. So I haven't written that one up there, but just to reflect back, canvassing is an important tool, but it can also be used for different goals. We talked about having a union training program to teach tenants to actually organize themselves. That's a really tangible thing. As we can see from postings on digital media sources, there are plenty of people who know something is very wrong, and if given the tools, they likely could make some material difference if they had some help to know how, or access to resources. Talked about a reload training to let people know about relocation assistance. I talked to the tenant Christopher, who I've been trying to share this, but Christopher lives in Portland and got a 30-day notice of eviction from his landlord, which is state law says that it has to be city code says it has to be 90 days, so it's not correct. Moreover, the method that this came was the landlord sent the tenant a Facebook message, which is also, that's not compliant with law. And the tenant said, yeah, I've heard something about maybe that my landlord has to pay me money, but I really don't know. And that's a thing that's heard over and over again. So getting the information out is great. New forms of media, talked about zines and newsletters. We need more accessible know your rights information. I know that booklet about ORS 90, the state law that governs tenants, is very dense and thick and hard to read. Internal trainings, that's something that we've needed for quite some time. Any other sparks that have been lit in terms of areas where there are needs that we're not currently meeting? I do appreciate the context that a lot of this is going to be fleshed out when we convene as the organizing committee and when the co-chairs of organizations can set meeting dates and times. It does seem like we have reached an organic kind of end to potentially the discussion that we can have in this space for these items. Can I get some reflection? Does that seem? Yes?
I just want to throw out one last thing, just like the basics of like infrastructure, like turning people out, like the member engagement piece, I guess, turning people out to this assembly, for example, really activating the people that theoretically are the source of our power, and building that power by adding more members and actually activating all like that. I mean, it seems it's like the scalability has been a constant challenge to get beyond just like a group of 10 to 20 really strong leaders, but like build a real force that's actually representative of the hundreds of thousands of renters that exist, that representative in the sense of like numerically and in terms of like the actual power that exerts. Not to say that like awesome things haven't been accomplished and will continue to be accomplished, but I want to make sure, like in addition to like new projects, just like the basic nuts and bolts, the attention needs to be there.
Portland Tenants United never has a shortage of projects, and I appreciate identifying that in order for those projects to be effectual, there needs to be the underlying infrastructure that actually activates and makes that happen. Yes. So any other further items for that? Cool. Checking in with our vote counters, it seems like we are still a bit out from having tabulated those. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So there was the intent to note the results of the ballots at this meeting. Could I get another time check? I keep thinking I have my phone, but it's my wallet. And a marker. So the time is 12:50. It seems like this might be a good stopping point for today. And as noted, we did all pass in our ballots. Those are being tabulated and will be disseminating that information in the coming days. Cool. While we're in this space, I always like to ask for, are there any things that we need to share about goings on in our community, or information that would be helpful for us to know about events coming up in the coming days, or birthdays you might be celebrating? That sounds cheesy, but birthdays are cool. Yes, I just said that.
Could we vote to go over so that Mark can be allowed to speak on the visioning?
So I believe that what just took, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what just took place was the extent of that conversation. It was noted that I appreciate, yes, that maybe we weren't on the same page in terms of what that conversation was going to look like. Yeah. All right. Well, I would like to thank you for being here today. And is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Anybody second? Second. Awesome. Well then, we are adjourned for today. Please definitely stay. We have the space until 2, which I will be heading out before then. But meet, talk, enjoy some food, and yes, au revoir to our digital audience. Thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, hit us up. Let's hear from you. Thanks.